Hello and welcome to the Farming Today podcast with me, Charlotte Smith. In this episode, consumers are warned to expect price rises as British tomato growers say the rising cost of heating will force them to end their growing season early.
They have the option of saying, well, we'll stop the crop early, which means they'll have to bring in imported tomatoes, peppers and cucumbers in. So the net effect is, no doubt, prices are going up.
More on that later. Let's start, though, with a partial government U-turn on sheep shearers. A concession had allowed around 75 shearers from Australia and New Zealand to work here for the season without a work visa. The policy was due to end this year. After warnings, not least on this programme, that ending it would impact sheep welfare, the government now says it will allow shearers in. But there'll be more checks and they will have to get a visa at a cost of £682. But the Migration Minister, Mike Tapp, has warned this won't be allowed next year and says the sector cannot continue to rely indefinitely on a concession to the immigration rules, and alternative workforce arrangements need to be found if they're unable to train enough domestic shearers to fill the skills gap. Jill Hewitt is from the National Association of Agricultural Contractors. I asked her if the cost of this year's visa might put shearers off coming to the UK.
Difficult to say. We're trying to be positive. We're trying to get information out there and we really need them to come. So I think shearing contractors here will be encouraging them to come. Yeah, only time will tell, to be honest, but we're certainly doing what we can to encourage people still to come. Might
it be that those shearing contractors will have to pick up the cost of the visa?
I think that will be for negotiation between shearers and individual contractors. There's not loads of money in shearing, so that will be for them to work out, I think, to decide who picks up that bill.
Because you can't really charge the farmers much more for shearing because they're not making that back on the wool, are they?
No, it's purely being done at the moment for animal welfare reasons. Because you're quite right, they won't make that back in the wool. So, yeah, it's a service that they need to have. People will struggle to pay a lot more for it.
Let's talk about next year. The Migration Minister has been very clear. This concession, as he calls it, will end in June and will not be renewed again. So what happens next year?
Good question. We were told that last year, to be fair. We're not keen to accept that, as you'll appreciate, because we have a world shortage of shearers. And it's very, very difficult to bring new shearers into the industry. You know, you can't just go down the job centre and recruit some new shearers. They need experience. It's very physical, so they need to be fit. And it's probably one of the most difficult jobs you can do out there. And it relies on that international sort of churn of shearers.
The government is keen that you use more domestic shearers, and British Wool says it has trained 4,000 over the past few years. So won't that help?
Well, of those 4,000, there are a very small number that go on to be professional shearers. The vast, vast majority of those shearers will go on and just shear a few of their own. I hear that some drop out during the course because it's very difficult. Anybody who's tried to shear a sheep will know that it's not something you pick up easily.
So is it realistic, as the government seems to hope, that we can rely on a domestic labour force to do this?
It is very difficult to see how we're going to achieve that. We have tried for 14 years. It's not that, between ourselves and British Wool, we haven't been doing anything. There have been thousands of shearing courses over that period. But this is a job that you have to be prepared to get dirty. I say you've got to be basically an athlete to shear these sorts of numbers. And it's something you can't do year round unless you travel overseas. So it's going to be very, very challenging, and I suspect we'll be sat in exactly the same position in a year's time.
Jill Hewitt from the National Association of Agricultural Contractors. Now, all this week we've been talking fertiliser. Today it's manure and slurry, or muck. It's full of nutrients, but applied in the wrong place or at the wrong time, it can leach nitrates and phosphates into watercourses, causing damage to wildlife and habitats. Now, there are rules governing this, which, as agriculture is devolved, are slightly different across the UK. In Northern Ireland, it's the Nutrients Action Programme, which covers the whole country. In the rest of the UK, we have Nitrate Vulnerable Zones, or NVZs. They cover 55% of England, 5 areas of Scotland and the whole of Wales. They all restrict when farmers can spread muck and how much per hectare. But as the weather becomes less predictable, farmers, particularly in Wales, say the rules are too restrictive. Sally Challoner reports.
It's a very wet grey day here in West Wales. And I'm heading to a farm just outside Cardigan to meet fourth generation dairy farmer Simon Davies.
We milk approximately 260 spring and autumn block split calving cow herds on a grass-based system.
Now all this week we're talking about fertiliser, of course, and slurry is a really useful byproduct of livestock farming. Tell me why it's so useful.
Yeah, it's organic. Well, there's nitrogen, phosphate, potash, so that's the building blocks for growing grass. It's just a good feed for the soil.
The problem is those nutrients can leach into watercourses if not stored or spread properly, causing serious damage. Under rules brought in from 2021, farmers must have enough secure, safe storage. They're not allowed to spread slurry between mid-October and mid-January, and there's a limit of 170 kilograms per hectare.
We lined the slurry lagoon and then we put a floating cover on top of it as well, so it's we separate the rainwater from our slurry.
Can we go and have a closer look?
Yeah, sure.
This is huge, and it's covered with this black plasticky, looks to me like a pond liner kind of thing. Tell me, how big is this?
This is 4,000 metre cubes, so approximately just over 1 million gallons.
Did you put this on in response to the new regulations?
Yes, to be compliant.
How much did it cost?
The lagoon itself is near 70,000 in total between the works and also the cover and also the fencing. There was a 50% grant from the Welsh Government.
You haven't been able to spread any of this, so this must be pretty much full.
This is full to the brim now at the minute, yeah. So it's ready now for during the growing season to spread out and utilise accordingly then.
Sounds easy enough, but the ground around me, and we're quite high up here, aren't we, is sodden and has probably been sodden all year.
Since the turn of the year it's been worse more than the back end of the autumn, but there were days back then where we could have spread, but of course we weren't allowed to spread because of the rules.
So what knock-on effects does that have for you?
The knock-on effect is that, we want to turn the cows out. There's grass here at the minute, ready to graze the grass, and also to make silage. And the time that we need between slurry applications and grazing and or silage is critical, really.
When the rain does stop and you can start spreading, there's a limit to how much you can spread, isn't there?
In Wales we're regulated by the 170 kilos of nitrogen per hectare, which is a real challenge when you consider that historically we used to run a herd of cows at 3.3 cows to the hectare, and now with these rules you're down to 2.2 cows to the hectare.
Have you got rid of some of your cattle?
Yeah, we've had a destock as well as putting in all this infrastructure. Some
people would say it's the farmer's own fault. The self-regulation just didn't work.
Possibly, but also, having a stick-style approach doesn't work either.
Simon Davies there. Well, while we're talking fertiliser, as we've reported over the years, runoff from the increasing number of farms around Lough Neagh in Northern Ireland is just one of the problems that's led to the virtual death of the biggest body of freshwater in the British Isles. This week, Radio 4's environment programme Rare Earth meets the people who live on its shores.
You really notice the algae, you notice the smell, and I suppose the worry is that it's just getting worse and worse. And it feels as if we're doing a lot of talking about it, but it doesn't feel as if there's any real action being taken to resolve it.
My dog, I take it for walks and can't get onto the loch, can't get in for a swim. That's how it's affecting me on the social side.
I used the loch for paddling. We ran summer schemes and adult courses, and all of that is more or less stopped.
Well, Rare Earth will be searching for solutions at midday tomorrow here on BBC Radio 4. British tomato growers say they may be forced to end their growing season early and import more tomatoes because of the increasing costs of heating. They say the conflict in the Middle East has raised the price of gas, with some growers' bills doubling in the last 2 weeks. Well, growing tomatoes and other crops in glasshouses is an energy-hungry industry, and with similar problems across Europe, growers say consumers can expect price rises. Simon Conway is chair of the British Tomato Growers Association.
As a good rule of thumb, about a third of a grower's input cost to their tomato crop is energy. So if you've got a third of your costs doubling, that's quite a big impact. Having said that, a lot of these businesses are very professional, well-managed financially businesses. We'll have hedges, forward contract purchases in place, and that varies across the board. But I would say a large percentage have got an element of their gas prices that floats on the market, and that varies from grower to grower.
Because some also use renewables, don't they, or combined heat and power plants and things like that, which will shield them a bit, won't it?
Yeah, so you've got combined heat and power units, lots of them are still using gas, but we have got members who are using waste heat from sewage works in Anglian Water site, for example. We've got ground source heat pumps. I've got anaerobic digestion sites as well producing gas. So it's a real mixture, but still I would say at least 3/4 are using gas. And those using CHP, you are correct, they will often have pricing for their electricity export. So a lot of them will export electricity, and often the gas and electricity price are linked. The worry with that is that as we go into the summer months, that often doesn't happen as much because of renewables. There's more solar, there's wind, but there's more renewables in the grid. That means the electricity price sometimes does not go in the same direction, which means that natural hedging doesn't work.
So for tomato growers at the moment, what can they do?
Well, I've spoken to some today who are very worried. So I've got one grower who said to me they're looking at reducing the heat in the glasshouse, what will that mean? It'll mean the crops will grow slower, the season will come in later. And then they're also looking at what they can do at the end of the season, because if the forward prices for gas, when they're buying into the autumn, they have the option of saying, well, we'll stop the crop early, so maybe 2 months early, which means they'll have to bring in imported tomatoes, peppers and cucumbers in probably 2 months earlier. So the net effect is probably price increases, but also we're going to be importing more of these products. And we've seen this winter, the weather conditions in Morocco and Spain has been terrible. And actually those areas where you would source from are problematic and not able to pick up the slack. So it sounds like an easy solution, but it probably won't be.
So for consumers, is a price rise almost inevitable?
Absolutely. If you think that Holland, Belgium, who will have the same issues because similar glasshouse structures as us, their prices will be going up because they're exposed to the gas price like we are. So it's for supermarkets, there isn't an easy way out. We'll need to be funding this. And then if because it's a global market, fresh produce, if that is going for these areas where they've got availability, it'll push prices up because normal supply and demand will kick in. So no doubt prices are going up.
We have been here before, haven't we, when Russia invaded Ukraine. In the meantime, have growers been looking at alternatives, ways of protecting themselves from these sorts of shocks?
Yes, a lot of investment's gone into new infrastructure, thermal screens, new energy models. Some of our newest sites have got some really good renewable link-ups using waste energy sources. So that takes a lot of time, planning. The UK system isn't conducive. No matter what DEFRA will say, it's still not conducive to getting applications for new infrastructure, modern infrastructure that quickly. I've got one site that's been delayed now 6-7 months waiting for a 40 hectare new tomato site in Essex. Just delayed. So there's lots of things going against us.
Simon Conway there from the British Tomato Growers Association. And that's it from us. I'm Charlotte Smith. The producer is Marie Lennon, and Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.